About 150 years ago, Mark Twain had made a close friend in the middle of the U.S. At the time, Mark Twain was 15 years old, and the friend he made was a young black slave. And I want to read to you what he said about that experience. He said, "I had a friend whose society was very dear to me because I was forbidden by my mother to partake it. He was a gay and impudent and satirical and delightful young black man, a slave, who daily preached sermons from the top of his master's woodpile, with me the sole audience. He imitated the pulpit style of several clergymen of the village and did it well and with fine passion and energy. One of his texts was this: 'You tell me where a man gets his corn pone, and I'll tell you what his pinions is.'" Now, what he meant by that was that your public opinion is influenced by where you get your food, your bread and water, where you get paid, where you're employed. And I use it to start this presentation because I agree with Mark's observation on this, that oftentimes where you're remunerated has an impact on what your opinions are, or at least what your public opinions are, and what you can say. And today I stand in front of you unencumbered by those chains of employment. So I plan to give you my views in frank a way as possible and that good manners will permit. I'm going to be talking about this relationship between marketers, agency, and media. It's a pretty important topic, I reckon, because we're all trying to reach that customer or consumer or audience in the middle. There are a number of clients that think their agencies are idiots. And why do they think that? Well, they will say that, before I get to the moral of this, they will say that the agency doesn't really understand my business. They know marketing communications, but they don't know about everything that goes into my business. They will say that they don't manage the money the way I would manage my business's money. They don't have the same kind of focus on that. They'll say that the agency only thinks about ads, or depending on the agency, only about promotion, or only about PR, or only about merchandising. And they don't think about the business holistically. They will say they're not accountable for the results, at least not as accountable as the person that owns the business, or not even as accountable as the marketing director. The moral to this story: agency people are idiots. My next story, I was the agency making the presentation. So I got in front of the group, and I was well prepared. I thought, we've got a sound strategy. We had good rationale to sell that strategy in. We had outstanding creative, at least in our eyes, and a solid media plan. And I made the presentation to this group. And again, deathly silence. And then I heard from one of the owners the 4 words most dreaded by agencies. What else you got? And I went on to say, we looked at all kinds of alternatives. We've filtered these down. This is our strongest recommendation. This is what you should do. And this particular owner answered with a not atypical kind of sexist comment, saying, yeah, Joe, I understand all of that. But you've shown us one thing. And he said, look, I might like the brunette, but I also want to see the blonde and the redhead, all right? And I thought to myself at that time, these people are idiots. Now, this impression of agencies thinking that the client is an idiot has been around for a long time. In fact, even before my time. If you've been in advertising for any time at all, you probably know this great quote from the legend David Ogilvy. The consumer isn't a moron, she's your wife. Most people don't know the next bit of it. Okay. David Ogilvy didn't say that, and I bet David Ogilvy wouldn't have said it, knowing about what I read. But it doesn't mean that the idea isn't there.
Baked beans and the Rolling Stones. A client's idea, if I ever heard one.
Well, we might have missed that, but he said baked beans and the Rolling Stones, a client's idea, if I've ever heard one. Another way of saying clients are idiots. So there are agencies that think clients are idiots. And why? Because they don't think that the client really understands the role of the agency or value what the agency brings. They're convinced that the agency, or that the client won't take risks. They won't put their money where their mouth is on what they say that they want to achieve. And when they see great work, they often won't fund it. So the moral of story 2, clients are idiots. Now, maybe you see the pattern developing here. Agencies are idiots, clients are idiots. What about my experience in media companies? What do the media companies think? Well, what I've observed is they think, and we always agree with our clients and their agencies. So what we end up with is a situation like this. Lots of finger pointing, everybody thinking that nobody else knows what they're doing, and that can cause a bit of tension in this three-way relationship. The fact is, we are all idiots, if you follow the philosophy of Will Rogers, which I quite like. Everybody is ignorant, only on different subjects. Now, here's a tough question, but I reckon this room will get it. Does anyone recognize this date and the significance it might have? It was 16 October 2003. This is the day that Apple said, hell froze over. What was happening on that day in the Moscone Center? Well, Steve Jobs was on stage and he was launching iTunes second generation. And there were lots of great new features in the second generation iTunes. They had a way that you could buy songs with one click. That was a big deal, believe me. They let you look at movie trailers. And they had 200,000 tracks that people could download legally. They could buy. Launch price, 99 cents in the US. And there was one more feature. And this is the feature that people said wouldn't happen until hell froze over. And that was Apple wrote iTunes for Windows. And as we look back on this date, this is the day where the music industry business changed. Now, I don't tell that story just for that story, because there was another meeting just after the big show that always takes place around Apple announcements, and it was back in a small room in the Moscone Center. Steve was there representing Apple. Jim was there representing Universal. And I've blacked out Jim's identity a bit because Jim is a fabulous music executive and still quite visible today. And I was there representing McDonald's. We were there to talk about launching iTunes, and specifically iTunes for Windows. Jobs had a great product to sell music legally. Jim had lots of music. McDonald's had millions of customers around the world, and more specifically, millions of Windows customers. So, what were we thinking? Well, Steve was thinking about selling iTunes and music. Actually, he was really thinking about selling iPods. But he believed that this would make a difference. I was there thinking about selling burgers because I thought if you got a free song when you bought a burger, you'd probably buy a burger. It was a great extra offering. And in fact, McDonald's had given away music many times in the past, but always on CD or cassette. And the problem was, no matter what music McDonald's gave away, somebody hated it. It was either old-fashioned, too new, the work of Satan. You know, there was some reason that McDonald's shouldn't be giving away that music. iTunes meant you could give away music, but the customer got to pick the song. So it was beautiful. Now, Jim knew that the music business was under pressure. Millions of songs were being downloaded, but they were being downloaded from Kazaa and Napster, basically illegally. And his business was decreasing. But he was still thinking about CDs. In fact, at the end of that meeting, when we'd kind of agreed on terms, he turned to me and he talked, well, a little bit like that owner-operator that I imitated before, because it's the only imitation I know how to do. But he said, Joe, this is great. This is fantastic. We'll give away all these songs. It'll be through iTunes. It's a great way that we're going. Then, when we're finished with that, I want to meet with you because we can take some McDonald's and we can distribute CDs and get people to buy more CDs. He was clinging to that old system. And let's face it, that's where all their money came from. The moral of this story, if you don't change your business model, somebody else will. So, we're back here at this model, this menage a trois of marketing communications. Media has fragmented like never before. How much? Everybody with a computer and an internet connection is a publisher. It's amazing. Agencies have fragmented. Even though the buzzword is integration, there are a hell of a lot more entities today to integrate. And marketers have to deal with all of that. And marketers have a lingering fear that today, one disgruntled customer with the right connections can reach more people than the marketer can afford to buy. And that's a scary thing. I think the model is creaking a bit and open for something big to happen from the outside of our control. What is it? I don't know. But I think it might be time for idiots to unite. For us to come together. And do what? You might ask? Change. To create a more effective and more efficient system that doesn't open itself up to two guys in a garage that say, we can do that better and change everything. Now, there are three things that I think are important to make this happen. First, for all of us, own the relationship. It's hard sometimes. You're one piece of a big organization. What difference can I make? You can make a difference. One person can change the way a relationship works. Secondly, invent. We have to go from trying to protect our current business model to inventing the new one, or at least protecting a little and inventing the new one at the same time. And the third one, respect, mutual respect for the other idiots, mutual respect across the borders. You might have heard this. I know I get this a lot. You don't get respect, you earn it. And I'm suggesting that we flip that on its head and we start with respect, and respect becomes something to lose. In other words, respect for our professional colleagues becomes our default position. And we go from everybody is an idiot to I respect the fact that you're a professional, that you have experience and you have expertise that may be different to mine, but that can benefit me. Now we want to get to the real world and find out what real marketers, agencies, and media have to say. So please welcome our three panelists. Marion Bess. Marion is today representing agencies. Sandra Hook. Sandra is representing media. Tara Lordsmith is representing all marketers. Do it for the team, Tara. Sandra, I'm going to start with you, and I'd ask you to stand up and take the microphone and speak to the group.
You mentioned the word respect, but I think there's absolutely got to be a level of trust. I think it works particularly well when when agencies and clients really do appreciate that journalists and whatever media it is has the ability to communicate with an audience because that's what they focus on every single day. So when there is an appreciation that those people represent an independent voice, and yes, it is one of those sort of wedges in the middle, and I think in these times of disintermediation, the whole ability to review the relationship that traditional media holds is one that we'll no doubt be discussing at length today, but the respect, the collaboration, the timely briefings, the detailed briefings, and that can come from so many people. I mean, we've had many great examples when the briefing's been excellent, timely, early in the process, so that creative thinking and a real ability to drill down into our audience and what might turn them on can occur. When things really go pear-shaped is when people ask you to come up with a concept on the hop. Friday night, can we have something on Monday morning because we're going in to present, so our teams work over the weekend, and I guess you get with weak inputs in, you get pretty weak inputs out, and no one feels very happy about it. But certainly that respect, collaboration, and reasonable briefing are big parts of it.
Would you pass the microphone, please, to your agency partner, Marion? Give us your perspective on how even the relationship between different agencies is working, and then how that relates ultimately to the client that you're all working for.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Actually, I see Robert Morgan in the audience there, who actually recently wrote an interesting article about again that time when media left the agency world and became completely divorced. And I think that one of the things that we're going to see pretty much, and what's starting to see now, is that the pendulum swung way too far, and we ended up in a world where clients were not necessarily getting the most powerful, impactful media plans. They were getting the most efficient media plans, which I think as an agency person we would all say is not necessarily always the best thing for an agency or agency for a client. So I think that you're going to start seeing better and more collaboration between the best creative agencies and the best media agencies collaborating for the benefit of the clients. And I think that's a really positive change that's going to happen, certainly one that we're working towards.
We've already heard the incredible changes at agencies in the last 10 years, incredible changes in media. How's that affected marketers, and what do you see as somebody that's responsible for managing not only all of those things, but all the things going on within marketing organizations?
Yeah, I don't know if the other marketers in the room have a similar feel about this that I do, but certainly marketing today, we're just handling so many more things apart from communication. Communication is a very small piece of what we manage. And so I think in the way that certainly I try and imbue the relationship that I have with my agencies is to get them to take on more of a custodian role for the brand and to take more of an ownership around how to actually bridge that gap between consumers, end consumers, and the brand, and what the brand should actually be doing in the communication space by giving them pretty much the budget up front. So give them the whole year's budget up front, and then work very closely with them to actually try and solicit opportunities in ways in which we can make that work harder for us every year. I think the other major change for us is that our distribution channel, which is largely supermarkets, is actually a media channel. So we're seeing the fragmentation of media actually occurring even, right at our own front door. So, a lot of my spend now is actually moving into supermarkets. And actively they are selling themselves as a media channel. Very, very smart, but it's actually changing the way in which we think about integration as well with the agencies and how we obviously get better ROI. And so just on that point, ROI analysis I think needs to be embedded into the processes that we go through in terms of the triad relationship, because I don't think enough ROI work's being done. Well, certainly not in my organisation. I'm actually going to embark on structure change in order to account for that and actually make certain individuals responsible for actually communicating what ROI is actually happening, because we have finite budgets and we have infinite choices in terms of where we spend our money.
I want to thank our panel and ask that you would thank them as well, and thank you for your active participation.